Welcome back to another Gaming Memories video. Here we are taking a look at a game called Rallycross that was actually released on the PlayStation back in 1997. This here is very similar to a lot of other rally games that were out on the platform, but this here does offer a little bit of a unique type of experience in terms of there were certain elements in the game that you would have to utilise in order to keep the car on the road. So you could actually flip the car and the car would go on its roof, and you'd have to use the shoulder buttons in order to flip the car back over so that you could actually try and get back into the race. Now I will say this here is a really extremely tough game to play. It is very difficult. It's enjoyable, but it's a very difficult game because it is based off like the Rallycross style of events. So the cars, when you're going over jumps, they're extremely bouncy. Like, it's to a point that sometimes the cars can be almost undrivable in certain types of terrain, and you will just bounce all over the place. It's not the fastest game in the world, but it definitely does offer a unique experience. Again, you have access to 6 type of tracks in the game, all in different countries with different type of terrain, and you have access to a load of different types of vehicles, each with their own balance, physics, elements and so forth, and they all do offer a unique experience. It is actually a decent game. I do remember actually playing this first off. I remember playing it on a demo that I actually had when I purchased one of the magazines, the monthly PlayStation UK magazines back in the day, and this was one of the games that was on it during, I think, during the summer months of 1997, and I actually did enjoy it, but it was difficult. It was really tough. The one thing I liked about it was the fact that on some of the tracks you had access to some other like different routes or even shortcuts that would help you. The downside with it is if you couldn't keep up with the pack at the start of the race, if you started to crash or whatever, you would literally instantly lose your place to a point that you would be lapped in no time, because the AI is very difficult to beat in this game, and any mistakes at all and you're pretty much crucified. And then to top it all off, it can be difficult to actually handle the car if you're not used to these type of games, if you're not used to what you're doing, so it can slow you down immensely as well. But aside from all those niggly little things, you can enjoy it. Once you get the hang of it, you can actually enjoy it. Another thing that I found was always a bit awkward with these type of games compared to other racing games, where when you pick the automatic setting, usually you wouldn't have to worry about changing the gears of the car. You would only need to do just hold the acceleration button and you're away. With this game here, it wasn't like that at all. You still had to change the gears at the start of the game, and then it would automatically work then after that. So when you're starting the race, you were always in neutral, so you always had to manually change the gear into first gear so you could go off. The downside with that is if you weren't aware of it at the start of the race, you'd be left sitting at the start and you wouldn't know what's going on, and you have to keep flicking through the buttons to find out which one is the one to change the gear. So that could slow you down, and that can cost you a lot of time and make you lose the races. On top of that as well, if you crash at all, as you can see here, you have to manually change into reverse as well, so again that costs you more time. It's not a case of where you can hit, like, say, the brake button and it would automatically go into reverse. This game didn't allow you to actually have a full automatic gear setup. You still had to manually adjust certain features in it, which was kind of annoying, and it definitely made the game a lot more difficult. You had to really be on the ball with this game to really get the most out of it. It is an enjoyable experience when you do get the hang of it, don't get me wrong, but this game will test you. This game really is tough. I do remember actually, and reviews it got back in the day, it did get decent reviews because of the fact is it definitely offered something that was very unique to rally games and different for its time. Again, it wasn't considered like a V-Rally and all other type of games at the time, but it was very different in terms of how it played. But again, it also did get some little bit of negative feedback due to some of the things that I mentioned as well, and that kind of hampered it. But again, they were just minor kind of little issues. But if you could master the game and just keep sticking with it and be patient with it, you could have a good experience with this game, and it was a fun experience if you just allow yourself just to adapt to it. So it was a decent game. It definitely offered a lot for its time, and again, it was definitely something different because there wasn't really many rally games that used these type of physics in them at all at that time, where the car was literally bouncing around like as if it's on a trampoline. But again, in some ways they tried to capture that type of realism, that if the car's bouncing around on different types of terrain, that's exactly how it would look. So it did manage to capture that element of it back in the day, which was a good feat in itself. But again, it is what you make of it at the end of the day. But again, even this here now, even though I found this difficult, I actually did enjoy this. I actually went and I purchased it then a couple of years later when I actually was able to get it cheap in one of the game stores. So I actually did play it quite a bit, because I do remember playing that demo an awful lot, even though I did struggle to win games, but I didn't really mind so much. I just enjoyed the whole experience. I loved the whole aesthetic of it, of what the game offered and what it was doing. And again, it was quirky and it was something different, but if you wanted it to be competitive, that's when it started to get difficult. If you just sat back and just enjoying it for what it was, you actually probably got more fun out of it, if I'll be honest. But it was still a decent game, and if you are into these type of racers and you want something with a bit of a challenge, feel free to definitely give this a go. It'll definitely test you, that's for sure, because it is tough. But again, you have access to different types of tracks. You have a total of 6 tracks, but again, you can race them in different formats, either forward or reverse. So they obviously add their own kind of element and different styles and challenge to it. And the cool feature as well at the time is that you could go through like mud traps on the ground, and you could actually physically see the dirt on the cars as well, which wasn't really an evident thing in racing games at that time. A lot of times you couldn't really see the likes of the aesthetics of how the environment would affect the car. The only other games apart from that you would have seen that back in the day were the Destruction Derby games. So there wasn't as many racing games out there that actually showed that element like of damage, and even the likes of the terrain, like mud sticking to the cars and so forth. You never really seen that as much. So it was definitely a unique kind of like type of concept back in the day. So that's the one thing, like I say, even though a lot of these games were difficult to play back in the day of the PlayStation, and they were, but they all offered something unique, and that's why the PlayStation for me is my favourite console of all time, because there was so many unique and quirky games on it, even the difficult ones and the challenging ones, even the ones that probably wouldn't be considered as good. There was always something in each one of them that actually stood out, that really would kind of stick in your head and you'd remember them by. And you'd always like certain features of games. There was always like an experimental element to each of the games that you played, and it was definitely for me the best era of games, because developers were definitely limited in what they actually had to do with the hardware and the software that was available, but what they were able to get out of it in terms of the things they were able to add into the games was fantastic. And you can clearly see what they were trying to do with their experiments and so forth, and sometimes they pulled it off, sometimes it didn't work so well, but you could clearly see what they were trying to do. And that's why I love that whole era of gaming, because they were always trying something different. And the thing is, you can see a lot of these elements in modern games today, so you can definitely see where they got these ideas from, which is pretty cool in itself. But then again, the PlayStation does have a lot to offer. Like, there is pretty much a genre or a game type for everybody out there. And when it comes to racing games, the PlayStation, in my opinion, is probably, if not one of the best, if not the best console for racing games out there, because it has tons of racing games. All different types of games, between like Mario Kart style kind of clones. You have rally games like this here, there's Gran Turismo, you have Destruction Derby, there's Formula 1, both authentic and kind of arcadey style games. There's something there for everybody, and they're all unique in their own way. Some are better than others, I will admit, but they all do offer a unique experience. And if you haven't played them, now would be a good opportunity to definitely go and re-explore some of these old classics, or even hidden gems, or even some of these quirkier type of games, and see what you think of them, because you definitely will enjoy a lot of them, and even gain some insights as to how they actually played back in the day. So I highly recommend that you do look into them, and this here is no exception, even though it is difficult, but it is worth the playthrough, if I'll be honest. So what are your thoughts on Rallycross? Did you manage to play it back in the day? Did you own it? And if so, what are your thoughts on it? Did you enjoy it? Make sure to share it down in the comments below. So if you have enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like. Also subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon so you'll be updated whenever I release future videos, as I will be replaying a lot of these old classic quirky style games. And sharing my memories, and I'll also be playing other games I never got to play back in the day and sharing my views and thoughts with all of you. And it also greatly helps me with creating more videos and to help increase engagement on the channel also. So until next time, keep playing those classic games and enjoying them, and make sure to keep those gaming memories alive.